Haiti.
One of those threats is this illegal alien from Haiti. ICE says he's a gang member with 17 criminal convictions in recent years.
Trump, you feel me? Yo, Biden forever, bro. Thank Obama for everything that he did for me, bro.
First, Tom, when you see that video, I'm curious, what do you think?
Well, he's wrong. He's going back to Haiti. I can tell him that. And look, I've said it on this network for 4 years. Joe Biden, opened these borders on purpose. It wasn't a mismanagement. It wasn't incompetence. He knew exactly what he was doing. He made the promises while he was running for president, and he kept those promises. At least you got to give him credit for that. But yeah, they've opened this border up, and President Trump's going to secure the border, the highest level ever. You thought we had a secure border before? Watch what happens now. It'll be the tightest border in the history of this nation, and ICE officers are finally getting the handcuffs taken off them, and they're going to put them on the bad guys throughout the country.
Yeah, sorry, dude. Let us know what the weather's like in Haiti. Maybe you can send us a postcard because that's exactly where you're going. Maybe you can hang out with all those celebrities that told us how awesome Haiti is. You guys remember that? And their idiot T-shirts that they wore only once, of course, for a photo op. That's what celebrities do. They all said, Haiti is great already. That included Bill Maher, by the way, who's desperately trying to rebrand himself in the age of MAGA. Maybe they can all hang out together in the already great Haiti. You remember what Rush used to say, gang? We are having more fun than a human being is allowed to have. And that sums up better than anything else this incredible and historic week. Greetings, everyone. It is a Livestream Friday, the first Livestream Friday of the new golden age. As always, I'm your host, Dr. Steve, your patron professor, here to celebrate with you the dawn of the new conservative era that you made possible back on November the 5th. So make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. I mean, what do you say, gang? What a week. What an absolutely incredible week it has been. It would be hard to exaggerate just how historic of a week this was and continues to be. Again, unlike Biden, Trump doesn't go on vacation. Trump sleeps like 4 or 5 hours a night and just spends every hour of every day, 7 days a week, changing the world. Some words that come to mind to describe this week: epic, exhilarating, thrilling. Put it in the chat. Let us know what words come to mind when you think of what this week has been like. Uplifting, right? Put it in the chat. It'd be great, exhortative reading for us. After 4 long years in the dark, bleak winter of the bumbling Biden age, a blossoming springtide has come in January. Our super chats, of course, are up. It must be the golden age. We've been completely remonetized thanks to all of you. So feel free to ask me your questions by availing yourself of the super chats. Actually, you can send in your questions either through the super chats or by becoming a Courageous Conservative Club member by clicking on that link below or going to fight.turleytalks.com/join. It'll be my privilege to answer your questions all throughout this live stream. Wow. I mean, so much has happened this week. Again, just think about it. Where were we 1 week ago today? Think about it. Bumbling Biden was president, or at least formally. The shell of a man was there. A shadow government was running our nation. The southern border was wide open. Economic stagnation engulfed the country. DEI was the law of the land. J6 political prisoners were behind bars. The demons in Davos were running the world. The international order was unraveling. And perhaps the cringiest part of it all, Kamala Harris was vice president. And today, 1 week later, that entire world, that whole woke world has literally imploded. It's you know what? I was thinking about it this morning. It's almost Genesis-like. You know, it's almost. I'm not saying Trump is God. No. But I mean, think about it. Trump basically remade the world in a week. I mean, so much has happened. I mean, think about it. So much has happened in just the last 24 hours. So on the eve of the National March for Life rally in D.C. last night, Trump pardoned 23 pro-life activists who have been sitting and rotting in prison simply because they protested in front of an abortion clinic. That was their only crime. They were protesting in front of an abortion clinic. I thought it's called the First Amendment. They were convicted and imprisoned for violating this absurd act known as the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act under the Biden administration. You want to know how wicked these guys are? These pro-life activists were charged with obstructing access to abortion clinics with sentences ranging, I kid you not, from 2 to 5 years. Like this wonderful woman. This is Bevelyn Williams. She's a mom. She's a wife. She was imprisoned for months by the Biden administration for simply praying in the wrong place in front of an abortion clinic. She was imprisoned for praying. Let that thing hit you. These were textbook political prisoners. This is what dictatorial regimes do. They get rid of their political critics. They put them in gulags. All Beverly did, her only crime was to pray in the wrong place. The wrong place as defined by left-wing lunatics. And we should note, did our legacy media care? Did our legacy media come to her defense? Did wacko, nutty female bishops at the National Cathedral speak truth to power on her behalf? No, quite the opposite. They all celebrated her imprisonment. They were cheerleaders for it. Well, thank God those days are over. Dad's home, as Tucker would say. And of course, as a result, as you could see, Mom is home. They have all been released on the eve of the National March for Life rally in Washington, D.C. In fact, it gets even better. J.D. Vance is out today with the marchers at the March for Life rally. I mean, it doesn't get better than this, gang. Look at him. He is just so cool. And finally, a bearded fellow gets to become a vice president. I love it. Now, this, of course, comes on the heels of Trump pardoning every single one of the J6 prisoners who've been languishing in prison for the last 4 years, again, as political prisoners. And, of course, the legacy media, they're going through a complete and total meltdown. After all, again, remember, the media celebrated this. They cherished, they relished these imprisonments. What did Elon Musk say to Don Lemon? You want censorship. You want censorship so much you can taste it. They wanted these people rotting in prison so much they could savor it. They deliberately amplified and magnified the J6 Kangaroo Committee. They didn't keep in mind, none of the legacy media outlets, in fairness, for the exception of Fox, Newsmax, but none of the CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, New York Times, Washington Post, NPR, they did not report on the J6 Kangaroo Committee. They staged it. They actively staged it. The Kangaroo Committee hired a former ABC News executive to help them stage and choreograph and promote the committee's hearings. This is why the legacy media remains so resolutely upset that you did not buy their kabuki theater. They worked so hard on their propagandistic production, and you turned around and you ignored it. How dare you? Think of your Greta. How dare you? Dare you? The legacy media put in so much time and effort at scripting and choreographing that whole spectacle that was supposed to once and for all bury Donald J. Trump, airing it live on prime time, only to have the vast majority of the country reject it. That's one of the That's one of the myriad of reasons why they hate you. You know that, right? The legacy media hates you. They don't just think you're wrong. They don't just think you're misguided. They don't just disagree with you. They want you rotting in prison so they never have to look at you again. The legacy media hates you precisely because you don't buy their bullshit they peddle each and every single day. And now, to add insult to the injury of their bitterness towards you, all the J6ers are now officially free. Trump, of course, also signed an executive order declassifying all files, every single one related to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King Jr. It was beautiful. I don't know if you saw it. He signed the executive order and he capped the marker and he said, "Give this to Bobby Kennedy Jr." The action, of course, will reveal for all to see previously classified documents that were supposed to be declassified by order of Congress a number of years back, but thus far the CIA has been stonewalling that. That most especially under the guise of Mike Pompeo. Originally, Trump wanted these files to be declassified in his first term. Mike Pompeo squandered that. He squelched that. He turns out to be just another snake. The CIA as a whole has been obstructing that, refusing to release that. Those days are over. You know, I probably share the same opinion the vast majority of you have. Roger Stone has long made the argument that this was, particularly the Kennedy assassination, a CIA op. I think our deep state took him out, which aligns with why that very same deep state is so adamant against releasing the files. We'll, of course, see in due time. But in the ongoing work at the southern border, that has been the highlight of this week. Did you see this? This is neat. So the ICE X account, so the Immigration and Customs Enforcement's X account or Twitter account, whatever you still use the term, they're putting up a daily deportation tracker. It's glorious. They're now doing daily deportation updates. I kid you not. I love it. Every day they are detailing how many arrests of illegal immigrants or suspected illegal immigrants have been made, how many have been detained, how many are being sent home to the south, as it were. And take a look at this. This will blow your mind. There's another mass caravan headed for the southern border, but it's headed in the opposite direction. Look at that. These are scenes, bumper to bumper traffic heading south into Mexico. Look at that backup. It's crazy. Roads heading to Mexico are now bumper to bumper, reportedly for miles, as more and more illegal migrants have decided to self-deport before they get caught, which makes sense. That's a good call, because the key here is that if you get arrested and deported from the country, you're never coming back. Just there's no period, full stop. You're never coming back. You can apply to return to the country, but the moment you're discovered to have been arrested, detained, and then deported, your application is dead in the water. So the best option, the most humane option that more and more illegals are realizing is to self-deport without getting arrested and then apply for readmission, as it were, and you'll have an infinitely better chance of being able to come back into the country, this time legally, of course, than if you were arrested and then deported. So that calculus is translating into massive lines at the southern border headed in the direction of Mexico. The mass caravans are now going in the opposite direction of where they were headed over these last 4 years. In fact, Fox News is reporting that the Mexican government is scrambling to build the tons of tents and massive encampments that they're needing to temporarily house the staggering number of migrants expected to cross the border. Again, keep in mind, they're not all from Mexico, right? Obviously, they're from Guatemala, Honduras, Venezuela, all over Latin America. And again, God bless them. I don't wish them any harm. I mean, I was a dad with children. I'd probably do the same thing. But the fact that over the last 4 years, we've had an open border that has actually encouraged people to do it. Maybe I wasn't thinking about it, and suddenly now I am, especially with all the benefits that are waiting for me and the way I'll be treated as a hero if I cry. I've always said I could never even begin to comprehend how if I showed up at JFK without a passport, I'm immediately sent back from my nation of origin. But if I show up to the Mexican border without a passport, I'm treated as a hero. It's always been the strangest thing to me. We saw it even during the COVID insanity. If you didn't have your right vaccines and so forth, you were immediately sent away from JFK. But show up at the southern border. We don't even know who you are, where you came from, what. But come on in. What took you so long? And so, anyway, with this process now reversing itself and so many people voluntarily self-deporting, the Mexican government is literally scrambling to have the number of tents needed to temporarily house the illegal migrants fleeing the United States before they get arrested in this mass deportation operation. Speaking of, look at how the state of Mississippi is getting in on this deportation action.
Would allow certified bounty hunters to assist in identifying and reporting undocumented immigrants was introduced in the Mississippi House of Representatives. The bill, proposed by the DeSoto County District Attorney and authored by State Rep. Justin Keene, would create the Mississippi Illegal Alien Certified Bounty Hunter Program. This program would offer a $1,000 reward to registered bounty hunters for each successful deportation they help facilitate.
I'm sorry, I just had in my head, but maybe we could have another cable show or something, right? Like Dog the Bounty Hunter, but now this time for deportation. I mean, the entire nation is galvanizing around border security. Remember, border security involves a two-prong approach. We talked about this. Kick them out and keep them out. That's probably what you could call the whole operation, kick them out and keep them out. So there's a mass deportation operation all across the country, the biggest one in American history, that is effectively kicking them out, right? It's deporting illegal aliens. And then, of course, what we're seeing at the same time is stopping the bleeding, as it were, operation. We're seeing the amassing of what will eventually be, we're told, 10,000 troops at the southern border, Army personnel and Marines, to put an end, finally and decisively, the illegal border crossing. So they're getting kicked out and they're getting kept out. And that is the new normal in our nation. And unfortunately for the woke left, they're frankly, I don't even know how to put it. They're beginning to crack. I mean, you've seen it. You see, the woke left is literally having a meltdown. Wait until you see what the liberal media is doing to each other. They're actually turning on each other. I kid you not. This is going to absolutely make your day. But first, gang, if you have not yet secured the deed to your home, you know you need to do that. So you need to click on that link below right now and protect yourself and your loved ones. The deed to your home is the only document that proves that you own it. But the problem is that all our deeds, as I'm sure many of you know, are all online. And criminals are now free to find your deed. They can forge your signature. They can refile as the new owner of your home. They take out tons of loans using your home's equity. And then guess what do? What do? They run off and they stick you with all the debt. But that's where our good friends over at Home Title Lock come in, gang. They are absolutely amazing. Home Title Lock gives you the peace of mind that the deed to your home is absolutely, completely protected. Click on that link below right now. Use promo code TurleyTalks. Then all you got to do is enter your address for your no obligation home title scan to see if you've already been a victim of deed theft. That's $100 value, absolutely, totally free with my promo code TurleyTalks. So don't wait for the worst to happen, only to regret you didn't do something about it when you could have. Do what I've done. Do what countless patriots have done. Click on that link below right now and secure your home today. All right, now this is gonna be fun. Take a look at this. Members of the legacy media in the age of Trump are now officially turning on each other. Turning on each other for what others in the legacy media did over these last 4 years in trying to cover up for Biden. This is so glorious. This shows you precisely just how much we won. We did not just win an election. We won our country back. The legacy media is turning on itself. It is starting to throw its fellow reporters under the bus for how they deliberately covered up for Biden over these last 4 years. Now, in particular, 2 ex-reporters for Politico. And keep in mind, Politico is one of the most biased pro-Democrat legacy media outlets out there. They are disgusting. They are nauseating when you look at their headlines, particularly over the last 4 years. Well, 2 of its former employees, I should say, who I guess read the writing on the wall, are accusing Politico of deliberately burying the Hunter Biden laptop story. Oh, really? Yeah, I know. Shocking, right? Legacy media outlets burying a story that would be embarrassing to a Democrat? Oh, come on. Well, these Politico reporters, former Politico reporters, blasted what they called their cowardly editors, who virtually shut down any story about the Hunter Biden laptop and instead pushed the deep state's nonsense that was all Russian disinformation. Now, I disagree with them on one point, which I'll get into in a moment, but check this out.
Example, when Politico did that terrible, ill-fated headline. 51 intelligence agents or former intelligence agents say that the Hunter Biden laptop was disinformation,
right,
or bore the hallmarks of disinformation. Turns out that story was closer to disinformation because the Hunter Biden laptop appeared to be true.
But then Facebook also pulled all stories down about the Hunter Biden laptop, and I think Twitter did at the same time too.
Correct.
Yeah.
They punished the New York Post. It didn't help. I mean, Politico, my former employer, and I knew at the time, didn't do itself any favors. I was covering Biden at the time, and I remember coming to my editor and saying, hey, we need to write about the Hunter Biden laptop. And I was told this came from on high at Politico. Don't write about the laptop, don't talk about the laptop, don't tweet about the laptop. And the only thing Politico wound up writing was that piece that called it disinformation, which charitably could be called misinformation. Since we're spilling tea about our former employer, I still have a copy of the story on my external hard drive. In 2019, a rival presidential Democratic campaign of Joe Biden's gave to me the tax lien, the Oppo research, the tax lien on Hunter Biden for the period of time that he worked at Burisma. And I wrote what would have been a classic story saying, the former vice president's son was slapped with a big tax lien for the period of time that he worked for this controversial Ukrainian oil concern or natural gas concern, which is haunting his father on the campaign trail. That story was killed by the editors, and they gave no explanation for that either.
Interesting.
So that general experience, obviously the public doesn't know about those things, but as a reporter, having witnessed the way in which the two candidates
we just get called like the terrible mainstream media. It's like you don't understand the process there.
We also don't understand the dumb decision of cowardly editors that are
the
made.
man above us when we're trying to do our jobs. You know what I mean? We're just looking for scoops, man.
The big bias is toward a good story.
The big bias is toward a good story. I'll give it that. No problem. But as you can see, they're throwing each other under the bus. Or their fellow newsroom execs. The one thing I would disagree with what he said there is I don't think the higher ups were cowardly, or better, cowardly only. I think a better, more apt term is corrupt. They're not cowardly per se. The editorial boards and executives in the legacy media that were shutting down those stories are corrupt. They have corrupted news for the sake of amassing an unprecedented level of power and wealth in aligning themselves with the permanent political class. But they're not, they're not speaking truth to power. They're amplifying that power. Think about that. They're not speaking truth to power. They're amplifying that power. They're about fabricating a truth that magnifies and justifies that power. That is the legacy news media today. They're not speaking truth to power. They are speaking the power's truth. That's a better way I think, summarizing. They can pretend to occupy some moral high ground all they want, these legacy media creeps. In the end, they are fundamentally corrupt. It's as simple as that. They have corrupted their role, their social, cultural role of speaking truth to power by reconfiguring that truth to amplify that power. They have replaced speaking truth to power by speaking the power's truth. They are incorrigibly corrupt. So the left is melting down here, as you can see, but it's not just here in the United States. The left is collapsing now quite literally all over the world. Now, I told you earlier this week about that study that was published in the New York Post over the weekend that looked at 73 elections that took place all over the world back in 2024. And they found that 60% of those international elections shifted right. The right-wing parties won. Left-wing parties won only 40% of the elections. That represented the lowest left-wing performance in global elections since 1990, when the Soviet Union was still around, 40 years ago. The world is literally turning right virtually everywhere. And so for me, I have to say, in light of that, for me, the highlight of this week was yesterday when Trump appeared at the WEF, the World Economic Forum in Davos, right? Did you guys see that? He appeared by way of simulcast. I kid you not. Jesse Waters put it best. He zoomed in as an explicit symbol of disrespect to the demons at Davos. It was an unmistakable, the fact that he couldn't be bothered to be there was an unmistakable expression of Trump's disdain and dismissal for the demons at Davos. He appeared by way of simulcast and delivered perhaps the single most blistering speech ever delivered at Davos, detailing how the globalist world that the demons in Davos work so hard to build, their Babel, is being systematically and permanently dismantled. Check out some of these highlights.
The President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
And he comes straight out of a DC comic villains world.
Well, thank you very much, Klaus, and hello to everyone in beautiful Davos. This has been a truly historic week in the United States. 3 days ago, I took the oath of office, and we began the golden age of America. What the world has witnessed in the past 72 hours is nothing less than a revolution of common sense. Our country will soon be stronger, wealthier, and more united than ever before, and the entire planet will be more peaceful and prosperous as a result of this incredible momentum and what we're doing and going to do. I terminated the ridiculous and incredibly wasteful Green New Deal. I call it the Green New Scam. Withdrew from the one-sided Paris Climate Accord and ended the insane and costly electric vehicle mandate. We're going to let people buy the car they want to buy. I mean, the Green New Deal was such a total disgrace. And it was conceived of by people that were average students, less than average students, I might add, and never even took a course in energy or the environment. It was just a game. Remember, the world was going to end in 12 years? Remember that? Well, the 12 years has come and gone.
I love him. I love him more every day. You don't understand. I want you guys to appreciate why he kept screwing and twisting the environmental agenda at the WF and in Davos. Why he deliberately kept doing that. He knows exactly what he was literally stabbing the very heart out of the WEF. A number of scholars, particularly Jordan Peterson, have recognized that apocalyptic environmentalism is the heart of the WEF. There is a kind of religiously inspired mythology for the demons in Davos, and it's a mythology that depicts the human race as a threat to the planet. You have to get that, because this is what makes Trump's speech to the demons in Davos so incredibly awesome. According to the WEF, humanity, under the guise of industrialization, which also entails patriarchy, racism, and colonization, right? So environmentalism goes hand in hand with DEI initiatives. But so under the guise of industrialization, humanity has radically disrupted and polluted the original state of the environment, of our biosphere, which WEF propagandists envision as a primeval ecological utopia. And in the name of restoring this primeval ecological utopia, the behavior of humanity must be radically regulated and engineered by a cooperation between big business and big government, between billionaires and bureaucrats. And this alliance of billionaire and bureaucrat that gets together every year at Davos deliberately seeks to engineer and manipulate your political, economic, and consumer choices so that you do not destroy the planet. In other words, as far as the demons of Davos are concerned, you are not allowed to vote a certain way. You're not allowed to vote for certain candidates because that can destroy the planet. That's exactly what they just did in Romania when Călin Georgescu, their populist candidate, their Trump, was about to win their presidential elections. So the Romanian Supreme Court canceled them. And nobody in the EU cares. Nobody in Europe is saying a word, not a peep. You're not allowed to vote for certain people because they can destroy the planet. You're not allowed certain economic opportunities because that could destroy the planet. You're not allowed certain consumer choices because that can destroy the planet. You see, the apocalyptic ecology that the WEF swears by justifies them in taking over the entire world with a one-size-fits-all political and economic program that completely eclipses our political and economic sovereignty. And Trump just walked it. Trump just zoomed in there just to show how irrelevant they are now and basically told them that that apocalyptic ecology and the billionaire and bureaucratic tyranny connected with it are all officially dead. They are dead. Oh, and you're going to love this. You're going to love this. As part of his speech detailing how the days of the WEF and woke corporations have come to an end, Trump he called someone out by name. This is what makes Trump so awesome. He'll call him out by name. This is what he had to say about the Bank of America.
By the way, speaking of you, and you've done a fantastic job, but I hope you start opening your bank to conservatives, because many conservatives complain that the banks are not allowing them to do business within the bank, and that included a place called Bank of America. They don't take conservative business. And I don't know if the regulators mandated that because of Biden or what, but you and Jamie and everybody, I hope you're going to open your banks to conservatives, because what you're doing is wrong.
Now,
Mr. President, I'll say that your friend Gianni said hello, told me to tell you hello, and we look forward to sponsoring the World Cup when it comes both this summer for the club and next year. So thank you for getting that for the United States.
Please don't call my name out, Mr. President. I love you. Please kiss the ring, kiss something else too. But if you want to see the political power, the unprecedented political power that man has right now, take a look at this. This is a tweet from Bank of America just after Trump called out their CEO for debanking conservatives. Look at this. If you're listening by way of our 20 million podcast downloads, I will read it for you here. It's a tweet that says, quote, Bank of America serves more than 70 million clients, and we welcome conservatives. We love conservatives. We would never, this is what it says, we would never close accounts for political reasons and don't have a political litmus test, which of course is not true. Right? You guys remember this, don't you? This is what makes the internet so much fun. We can revisit past moments, past transgressions in real time. Tucker Carlson reported on this a few years back. He exposed how Bank of America was turning over private customer data to federal authorities in the Biden administration. Again, I'm going to say that again. Private customer data on their own customers who had not been accused of any crime. And according to Tucker's report, the Bank of America was actively but secretly engaged in the hunt for extremists in cooperation with the Biden government. Bank of America is, without the knowledge or the consent of its customers, sharing private information with federal law enforcement agencies. I should say was. I should rephrase that, since those days are now officially over. Bank of America effectively acted under the Biden administration as an intelligence agency, but they are not telling their customers about it. In the days after January 6th riot at the Capitol, Bank of America went through its own customers' financial and transaction records. These were the private records of Americans who had committed no crime, people who, as far as we know, had absolutely nothing to do with what happened at the Capitol on January 6th. But at the request of federal investigators, Bank of America searched its databases looking for people who fit a specific profile put together by the Biden FBI and Justice Department. So when all is said and done, Bank of America basically acted as a surrogate intelligence agency, as if the bank's customers were suspected of being members of Al-Qaeda. Again, this was an active participation by a major financial corporation in the weaponization of the three-letter agencies in the Justice Department against the American people, particularly against MAGA, billionaires and bureaucrats teaming up to crack down on freedom. And of course, to make matters worse for them and why they're so freaked out right now, Trump himself was the victim of this pernicious, woke, excommunicative practice of debanking, was he not? Deutsche Bank, who I'm talk about a corporation that has egg all over their face, as well as, by the way, Signature Bank, but they don't have egg on their face because they're basically defunct at this point. They cut ties with Trump. They debanked Trump, citing the assault on the U.S. Capitol building as their reason for excommunicating Trump from their services. Do you see how J6 gets weaponized not just by bureaucrats like Liz Cheney, but also by billionaires? So Trump himself was the recipient of financial institutions that got weaponized by the radical left to disenfranchise President Trump and his supporters. Well, what a difference a week makes. Those very corporate executives are now bending down and kissing the ring. They are begging Trump not to crack down on them for what they did these last 4 years. I think this is what Trump meant when he said that his best revenge will be his success. His ultimate revenge will be watching all of these corporations pathetically groveling at his feet. And that is exactly what they are doing. The world is aligning around MAGA. A new civilizationalist golden age is indeed rising. And as far as that fellow at the beginning of the video is concerned, this golden age might even come to places like Haiti. So it's not going to be too bad, I promise. Over to you, gang. Over to you. As Josh and Micah assemble whatever questions you have for me, we often talk about how we can maintain and build up the conservative way of life. And one crucial aspect of that is your routine. Staying strong physically and mentally isn't just about living longer, it's about living better, which starts with a good night's sleep. Now, I've been using Beam Dream every single night for a while now. And gang, I'm, as God is my witness, it's completely changed the way I sleep. I'm a horrible sleeper. It's been a problem of mine for years. I have a very hard time turning off my brain. Sometimes I'm lying in bed, I kid you not, for as long as 2 to 3 hours. That's like average. Ever since I started taking Dream at night, I literally crash. It knocks me out. I fall asleep so fast, and I sleep deeply and soundly all throughout the night. Beam Dream is made with the highest quality sleep-promoting ingredients to help you unwind and get that deep sleep we all need and deserve. In fact, it's a nightly ritual of mine, and I look forward to it every single day. I love, if I may recommend it, you'll see it there. There it is, all the way in the far right. Of course it's on the far right. I love the brownie batter flavor. You have got to try it. They're all great, but that brownie batter flavor, I love it. I put a little cream in at night. It's just like lovely hot chocolate. And, I'm out. I'm out like a light. And I never feel groggy the next morning. I wake up feeling rested because it gives you a very deep sleep. So I'm rested, ready to give my all, making a huge difference in how I just show up every single day, like right now. So, speaking of right now, you can save up to 35% off with my exclusive Beam discount, okay? 35% off. You've got to try this out. Just click on that link below, or you can scan that cool QR code on the screen. Use code Turley at checkout, and you'll get that 35% off. Use code Turley, get that 35% off. I mean, gang, it's time to stop letting sleepless nights hold you back all throughout the day, yawning and so forth. I feel great. Transform your sleep and your day with Beam Dream because you deserve it. Click on that link below or scan that QR code right now. All right, what questions do we have here, guys? What do we got? Vlad the Impaler. Every day I wake up, I feel like a kid at Christmas. Amen. I feel like a kid at Christmas. That's right. I immediately go online to see what new awesomeness Trump has done while I was asleep. Here's one for you, Vlad. So we all I do it. I have to do like little backgrounds. What do you call that when you're going to sleep to just some soothing sound? There's an actual technical term for that. I forget. But I think it was Jack Posobiec who said the sound of Trump's marker when he's signing every executive order. We just need like a 24/7 YouTube live replay, 24/7 of just that sound. I mean, it's like the most comforting sound. You just know that's the gentle sound of your nation, of you getting your nation back. It's beautiful. I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely. Thanks, Vlad. That's great. Kid at Christmas every day. Keith, are there good prospects for getting photo ID enforced in all states prior to the midterms? Yes, as I understand, that's going to be one of Trump, obviously post 2020. This is part of what's freaking out the left so much. This is why they keep calling it retribution, and retribution isn't in the Constitution. Trump experienced the beauty of having Trump in the presidency is he experienced the very persecutions that many patriots have experienced over the years, and most especially what happened in 2020, keep in mind, we weren't even allowed to talk about this as far as Google was concerned, YouTube were concerned. In January, months after 2020, we weren't allowed to talk about it. Well, now we're talking about it because now it's the policy of the nation. So and will be the kind of reforms that come out of 2020. I think he's already said that they're launching a full investigation of what happened in 2020. They're going to release their findings, and then they're going to put forward the recommendations. And photo ID requirement nationally will be one of those recommendations. Now, it'll be challenged in the courts, so that might be the impediment for it to be ready for the midterms. So we'll see. But it looks like that is going to be that is good. And again, in states that matter, where we have our Republican majority in both houses, in both chambers of the legislature, it shouldn't matter because they all already require photo ID. It's only in California, all the deep blue states that don't do it because somehow that's against civil rights. I don't know. Work that out, right? So we should see that. That's very good prospects for that. Rotkorp, Dr. Turley, you got to keep this one today, although Monday would have been best, but please lead us in a song. All right, let's see. So come all ye faithfully would add it. So come all Trump faithful, joyful and triumphant. Oh come ye to the White House. I should to the White House. Come, us who vote for him. Born the king in Queens, New York. Oh, come, let us support him. Oh, come, let us support him. Oh, come, let us support him. President Trump. There you go. Put that one in the can. You got it, Rotcore. Anything for you, my friend. Love it. I love it. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, you missed your calling. That's so cool. SNS Outcast. What a rush of good information. Yes. What are having more fun than a human is allowed to have. I miss him. I've been seeing several, I told you guys I got to meet him. That was one of the coolest things of my young adult life in the early 90s, right around it was 96, 95, 96 during the 96 campaign, right after the big Gingrich revolution. And he was just so wonderful. I mean, he was just such an amazing man. And, what you had on camera or better on the mic is what you got. I mean, his brother, David Limbaugh, constantly repeat. David will say he was even more wonderful in person than on mic, if you can imagine that. I don't know if you can imagine. So I miss him. There's been a lot of tweets of late saying that Rush is celebrating with us right now. Heaven is celebrating, riding along with those of us on Earth. Lila Mae Briggs, did you know the real reason that Comdata of the Coast Guard was relieved of duty? Do you know the real reason that Comdata twice? I don't know what I thought is because she was just based. She wasn't just a DEI hire. She was a DEI propagator. But that's what I thought. There may be something deeper. I do not know. If you know, do tell us. James, the mainstream media shot their own foot. I agree with that 1,000%. They are, the timeless wisdom of the ancient world is, but particularly in what Paul writes about it in Galatians. You reap what you sow. I mean, there are real moral laws here. I'm sorry, James. I just when you say that, I immediately this springs to mind. There are moral laws just as sure as there are physical laws. So pride really does go before the fall, and you really do reap what you sow. I mean, there's just no moral laws, spiritual laws are just as, if not more, certain than physical laws. So I think the legacy media destroyed themselves. They are reaping what they sowed right now, which was legitimate dissent and distrust in their reporting, precisely because they tried to present lies as truth. And then they had the goal of not just lecturing us when we didn't believe it, but then actively seeking to cancel us. Okay, forgive me, James. So the mainstream media shot their own foot. They made the conservative find a way to get their voice out. I could talk about that. I've got a comment to that. Now they need to find their own way to reach the viewers they ignored. And I say good riddance. Isn't that astonishing? If the media just simply was the media, they wouldn't have excommunicated Trump. They wouldn't have kicked him off Twitter. They wouldn't have kicked him off Facebook. Right? I'm talking about media and big tech, both, because the media cheerled that. As a matter of fact, the media pressured them to do that. Are you actually going to allow somebody who was pushing terrorism, the single greatest crime against our democracy since 9/11, you're going to allow someone like that to continue to have a voice on your platform? So they were pressured by the legacy media, big tech, to excommunicate Trump. Had they not excommunicated him, he would never have founded Truth Social. You would never have had Rumble. You would never have had this massive parallel ecology, information ecology. And if Twitter hadn't done it, Elon Musk would never have bought him. So they are only reaping what they sown. That's you could not. And then, of course, the media just lied and lied and lied. Kamala's going to win Iowa. Lied and lied and lied. Biden is he's cogent. This is the best Biden ever. And lied and lied. Russian disinformation. That laptop, 51 intelligence expert, and lied and lied and lied. And finally, Trump wins. And the last bit of the audience that they still had that was willing to have them lie to them finally said, screw you. I'm done with you. You are a bunch of liars. So I'm just tuning out. So you have a very large portion of the left population that have just completely tuned out at this point. They've all seen their audience, their ratings drop by at least 50%. I mean, it's just been a disaster for them. So James, you have put forward the timeless wisdom. We do reap what we ultimately sow. Carol Hellman, good to hear from you, Carol. Good morning, Dr. Turley. I have 2 questions. I've been watching the executive orders, and I've not heard about 2 I've been watching for. Number 1 is dissolving the Department of Education. Waiting for that myself. And I'm wondering if Biden's 5-month stay of federal workers still staying at home for work still stands, or does his executive order change that? Love your grandma groupie. Thank you, Carol. I believe backwards, I believe, but I don't know. I'm going to have to look at it. I assumed that his order ending remote work changed that. So that's over. Because what they want to do is they want to get rid of those workers as fast as possible. I'm still waiting on Department of Education. I don't know how he wants to handle that. That's going to be, once you have a major department, it's got its own building and everything like that. Closing it down, I think, is going to be a little bit of it's going to require some political finesse. But I think he can do it. I think the majority of the country's finally said enough, send education back to the states and keep the federal government out of it, especially when you realize how vile the Department of Education has been. And again, all you have to do is expose them. That's what I really love about what's happening here is that, like, when he called out the CEO of Bank of America, Trump is all about exposing them right now. And that lies hate light. Lies hate light. So I have a feeling they're amassing a narrative of exposure for the Department of Education, which is the single most far left lunatic department in the entire government. And that says something. They are as far left lunatic. They make NPR, right? National Public Radio. They make them look conservative by comparison. I know I was in education for 20 years and I just, the horror stories of the left, of how the left has taken over education via this department is nightmarish. So I think he's just politically priming. Let's put it that way. So let's see. We'll see what happens. Steve, agree or disagree? Trump dancing to YMCA proves he isn't Hitler. I never saw Hitler dancing like that in any rally, and I can't imagine it. That's brilliant, Steve. Yeah. Where did I see that? It was the McDonald's. It was the McDonald's political stunt. I guess that's technically what it is. It was brilliant. It was beyond brilliant. I saw that all day long for the whole rest of the week after he did it. But Trump waving with the gown on, and the apron, McDonald's apron, out the drive-through window. And then you would just see meme after meme after meme. Funny what Hitler is doing today. Well, wow, what a strange new wave from Hitler. Oh, wow, you could go to McDonald's and get served by Hitler. So it just showed that the rhetoric got so far outside the realm of reality that it only ended up alienating the vast majority of the country. The left's rhetoric, which we found very maddening at the beginning, say 8 years ago, we found very maddening. Now, the vast majority of the country finds repulsive and literally absurd. So when you're calling Mr. McDonald's server a neo-Nazi, or when you're calling somebody dancing to YMCA, here again, perfect way of explaining it. That you could tell this to friends and family who are still skeptics of Trump. The left has lost when they've lost the village people. You know the left has gone way too far when the village people are now considered far right. Right. Same with feminism. You know the left has gone way too far when people like Riley Gaines or what's her name, Jillian Michaels, the health expert, exercise expert, women who are standing up for women's rights, Martina Navratilova, these who want to stand up for the integrity of women's sports, when they're being called far right, when to be feminist is far right, you know the left has gone insane. And what you just said there is a perfect example. Wow, Hitler dances to YMCA. Hitler waves hello to you from a McDonald's drive-thru. Obviously, it's cognitive dissonance that can only be resolved with, well, obviously, he's not Hitler. That's awesome, Steve. Mitchell, quick question. Dr. Steve, in playing devil's advocate, should we be cautious about Davos investing in the United States? Yeah, should we be skeptical? Well, sure. There's always going to be a healthy skepticism, but there's always going to be an aristocracy. That's the key. Okay, so and we talk about this a lot on the channel. The way of bringing together is what Patrick Deneen calls Aristopopulism, which is a concept he gets from Aristotle. So the bottom line is what Trump is doing. So let me back up. What the WEF represented prior to this week was not an aristocracy. They were an oligarchy. They were an oligarchy that was deliberately trying to destroy the values, interests, and concerns of the vast majority of the people, the populations around the world. Aristotle said that's a disaster. You do not want to live under a society where an oligarchy disdains the values, interests, and concerns of the people. But you don't want to live in its opposite, which is the people rising up like in the French Revolution, cutting everybody's heads off, because then you have mob rule. You don't get any farther there. You get your revenge. But then after the last head's cut off, now what? And then, of course, they got Napoleon. So what you want is you want a balance between your aristocracy and the values, interests, and concerns of the people. And that balance comes from the aristocracy using their power and wealth to enact and to realize and to materialize the dreams, the hopes, the values, the interests, and concerns of the people. That's how you get that's what gives us Venice, right? That's what gives us Rome. That's what gives us Athens. That's how you end up with civilization, a thriving civilization. So I think what Trump is doing, in effect, is he's going to Davos and saying, you know, the king has returned, as it were. And I don't mind. I like calling him king. I think he's freaking awesome. The king we voted for him. It's a king we vote for, but the king has returned. Daddy's home, as Tucker would say, and your jig is up. And I can make your life very, very, very hard. I can tariff you to the point of submission, and that I may not even lift. I may want to just keep those tariffs on. I can make your life very hard right now. I have the power to do that. Or I can make you very prosperous. But you got to work with me. Putin did the same. This is exactly what Putin did with oligarchs. It's not that the oligarchs, quote, were bad. It's the oligarchs were bad, but could be shifted to good. In other words, there's a neutrality there where they can start taking advantage and pillaging the people, pillaging Russia, or they could be used to advocate the populist sentiments of Russia and materialize them with their power and wealth. Putin said, if you are going to keep your money in Russia, and if you are going to use that money for the benefit of the people, for their promoting their values, interests, and concerns, you get to keep whatever industry you own. If you don't, I'm taking it over. And that's, to me, in effect, that's kind of what Trump did. I'm not say he was taking over, but he's using tariffs as his key weapon that they're scared to death of, because they all come from a globalist world, a one-size-fits-all economic system run through the WTO and the IMF, where tariffs are considered taboo. So that's what so he's basically saying a new sheriff's in town. And if you're going to work with us in creating the infrastructure of a MAGA golden age, come on in. If not, you're getting buried. That's basically what he said. So it's not about taking WEF investments per se. It's about grabbing the billionaires and bureaucrats around the world, telling them a new sheriff's in town, and who wants to obey the law now? Because if you do, you're gonna have your days are gonna be great. But if not, I'm gonna crush you. You're out. So in many ways, Trump, I think again, this was this Jesse Waters last night? I was watching Jesse a little bit last night. So I think he said he's kind of like a free agent manager. He's like he's the agent. Or is that a manager of a free agent or whatever? So his client is the United States, and he's just going around brokering the best deals for us everywhere. That's basically what he's doing. So it's a great question. We always have to be concerned, no question. But I think with Trump as our agent, brokering great deals, I think we're going to be good to go. Herculang, God bless you, Dr. Steve. Thank you for your faith-filled encouragement over the last 4 years. God bless you, Herculang. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. Praise God for this week. No, praise God. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I mean, you just think of what could have happened on J13 in Butler, and seriously, I mean, just let that hit you. We would have been on the cusp of civil war. We would have been on the cusp of tearing each other apart. And instead, God is so gracious to us. So it's beautiful. Steve, what say you about the temporary injunction for the birthright citizenship EU? Yeah, so that everyone expected this. Trump expected this as well. The federal judge is just a freaking left-wing moron idiot. It was brought by the case. Trump was sued. The EO that gets rid of this 14th Amendment birthright citizenship. Trump was sued by the ACLU, and they went to a judge they knew would give him the judgment they want. No, I mean, they knew this was going to happen. This has got to go to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court's got to make its decision, and then Trump will take it from there. Bottom line, Trump's EO simply says that if you are not here legally and you have a baby, that baby does not become a citizen. The only people who are allowed to be citizens are those who are under the jurisdiction of the legal jurisdiction of the United States and do not have an absolute loyalty to another country. So, for example, permanent residents, green card recipients, and so forth. This is why ambassadors, they can have kids all they want here while they're visiting in the country. Those kids are not U.S. citizens because their ultimate loyalty is to another jurisdiction. So, bottom line, it just comes down to this. Do we really believe the Constitution says that anybody born in the United States is automatically a citizen because they're born on our land? Anyone, no matter what, except for these exceptions because they somehow work in our favor? Or are the exceptions that are made applicable as well to illegal immigrants? Now, there was a former Supreme Court decision that said illegal immigrants still come under the clause for birthright citizenship. I think if I recall, it was the Warren Court. They're activists, left wing. It was insane, and I would hope that the current court overturns that and makes it clear that if you are here illegally, you are not under our jurisdiction in the sense that you are a legal recipient of our constitutional rights. So to me, I wouldn't worry about this as part of the process. Terry, Representative Brian Babin of Texas should have introduced a law spelling out who is subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and entitled to birthright citizenship. Would say that law has a better chance of holding up before SCOTUS than Trump's executive order, which already has a preliminary injunction against. Well, the law can get shot down because, again, this is a constitutional issue. So if he's putting the Supreme Court could knock down this subject to the jurisdiction, what it means. Defining it, they can knock that down as unconstitutional. That's a legislative attempt to try to redefine. It would be like, the Democrats passing a law that said, well, bearing arms, the Second Amendment means this. And that is, only people we approve of can own weapons. And that's police officers that we approve of and that go through DEI training and all that. the Supreme Court, of course, would slam that down. So it doesn't. No, the Supreme Court's going to have to make this decision, and then if they go nuts with it, if they're going to uphold this absurdity, insanity, Trump may have to actually just go and try to do a constitutional amendment if we've got enough red states and we've got enough Republicans and in the majority in the House. I thought it was a super majority of states, but then a simple majority in the House and the Senate. I have to look back at my constitutional amendment civics, but he may have to go. He may have to do that again. It's also irrelevant in that his policy of kick him out and keep him out is happening at such lightning speed right now. You know, I just, you have to get here to do that. And it's going to be so hard now for illegals to get here. And if they want to get pregnant, you know, even if they did, even if they had gave birth, the legal hurdles that can be put in their place to obstruct could be massive. Again, it just depends how the Justice Department wants to process these things, but the Justice Department can obfuscate. There's ways of frustrating the 14th Amendment, even if the Supreme Court keeps it intact as the liberal Warren Court originally interpreted it. So anyway, we'll have to see what happens. Speaking of gang, you know, we do look out for each other here, and your health is our number one priority. So look, if you or anyone else you know are struggling with weight gain and loss of energy that comes with the fatty liver, 300 or 100 million Americans suffer from it. You've got to try Liver Health Formula. It's an all-natural supplement. It contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA, and it's approved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, you can try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. Click on that link below or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. All right, moving on. What else do we got? What else do we got? Good questions today. Indy J16. Breaking news. Trump to sign executive order release Obama's real person. Well, oh, LOL, just kidding. Oh, that would be hilarious. Would that not be hilarious? I mean, come on, Indy, that would be great. I mean, that's, in many ways, that's how Trump broke into politics, was, getting, trolling Obama. It was brilliant. Potatoes and trash. The people Biden pardoned means nothing, right? Because to be pardoned, you need to be criminally convicted, right? Yeah, again, that's another thing that the Supreme Court is going to have to work out. So the president apparently goes back to Gerald Ford pardoning Nixon. And Nixon had not yet been convicted of anything. He was threatened that he was going to be impeached in the House and convicted in the Senate. And that was enough for him to resign. And then one of the first acts that Gerald Ford did is he pardoned him of all crimes or what have you. But that pardon was never challenged in the Supreme Court. I mean, they did what they wanted to do. They got rid of Nixon, right? The single most popular president we've ever had. We've never seen a landslide victory like 1972. So, and then literally within months, he was escorted out. One of the arguments was because he was trying to reconfigure and dismantle the deep state. So it's going to have to get challenged. We'll have to see. My namesake, Jonathan Turley, he thinks the pardon is about as close to a monarchical decree that the president has constitutionally. It's the closest thing. Because remember, we do have founding fathers that had monarchical sentiments, right? Hamilton, for example. And it's the closest. So he thinks it's pretty absolute. If he wants to pardon And he could pardon anybody he wants. Somebody who committed crime, who didn't commit a crime. He could pardon family members. He could pardon himself. He could pardon whoever he wants. So the Supreme Court's going to have to figure that out. Now, as I understand it, it does have, at a federal level, in our federalist structure, it does have limitations. I do believe that states can sue. And again, we're not dealing with presidents here, so they don't have the immunity clause. States can sue, and already, as I understand it, Florida's Attorney General is looking into bringing charges against Anthony Fauci because the argument here is what Fauci did affected adversely Floridians. Texas is, I believe, doing the same thing, and so they do have standing in bringing him to justice. So we'll see. We'll keep an eye on it. I know it's very frustrating. This is the way the swamp works. Swamp creatures are going to fulfill their job description. Just thank God, potatoes and trash. We won. We won, man. We won. So yeah, they might burn some oil fields on the way out, but we won. And so that's everything. Literally everything. If you have your health, you have everything. If you won the presidency and the Senate and the House and the majority of governorships and state legislatures, by definition, politically, you got everything. James P., did you see the picture of the criminals being deported to Guatemala from Biggs Army Airfield, all in chains, winning? I did see a couple of those pictures. I believe, was that on X? I did see several deportation pictures, and it is brilliant. I mean, again, these are all of them right now, virtually all of them are hardcore criminals. I mean, Venezuela basically emptied out their prisons and sent them up here to go on crime sprees. We know moms who buried their children because of the result of this stuff. I mean, it's just disgusting. So yes, James, it's happening, and it's amazing what a difference a week makes. Richard Maynard, good to hear from you. Dr. Steve, your thoughts on the ICE raids? Yeah, so absolutely. I like the prioritization. So the prioritization is very interesting because by prioritizing criminals and violent offenders and public safety threats, they also arrest any illegals with them. So they have set people who are on their radar because of the catch and release. So they do, again, they left their fingerprints all over the place. It's so ironic, but so they're able to go and do these mass raids. And then in those mass raids, they're able to find anybody who's illegal are going to get arrested with them. That's Tom Homan's idea. So it's so fascinating. The public safety threat is the tip of the spear that's going in. But then as they go in, they're able to grab it, so many others in the process, which at the same time then makes the public safety threat target, they're basically social lepers. Nobody wants anything to do, and they stay away from them. So that will obviously promote this notion of self-deportation, because now they're probably going to get arrested, although things might be even worse in Mexico if they show up there. They might be scared to death going to the border. We'll see, but I'm a big fan of the way they're structuring it. So you're starting there. Then the second stage is you go with those who have been here the least amount of time, the ones who have come over the last 4 years during the Biden administration's absurdity. And then you go to the ones who've been here, say, 5, 6, 7 years or more. It's going to be a little rougher because they've built family. I'm just saying rougher emotionally. Just be prepared for that. But because they've built families and so forth. But in the end, every poll out there, when asked, do you support deporting every single illegal migrant, it's getting supermajority support. It's 60% plus support. So they know they've got a nice window here of political clout to get this done, and they're doing it. Baja Cat, globalist one system rule was always going to fail. There won't be a successful one system until Christ's return. Brilliant. Yeah, that's the tale of Babel. The tale of Babel is that a single worldwide political and the Antichrist. That's the theology of the Antichrist. a single worldwide political and economic system is to play God. It is to put oneself in the place of God, because we're created in the image of God, and which means we are created to rule and reign, to have dominion in accordance with God's rule and reign. So we, as mediators on earth, theologically, as those with physical bodies but spiritual minds, as it were, physical bodies, spiritual souls, we mediate. We are interregnum between heaven and earth. We destroy that in our fall. We mar it in our fall, and then that's ultimately revealed in the worship of animals and the worship of created things. And then Christ, the Son, in his incarnation, restores by becoming truly human. He restores that mediation and is able to bring heaven and earth together in his very person. So any kind of Babel-like rule, any kind of one-size-fits-all rule from a single worldwide government in any kind of form would theologically constitute a Babel-like attempt at replacing God. It's a Babel-like, so building up to the heavens and creating this artificial mediation between heaven and earth. That's why I'm very excited about sort of this civilizationalist cosmocracy that's rising up, where we are reorganizing around civilizationalist spheres. So there's tremendous diversity, but at the same time, there is a unifying technocosm emerging via the internet, via cyberspace, via AI, even via crypto, where we all do get to share in common information, common currency, common structure, but without losing our civilizational identity. So we're getting, it seems to me, what makes this archaeo-future world so exciting is we're getting both the resurgence of our cultural specificity, multiplicity, literally multicultural, multi-civilizational world coming alive again in its beautiful colors, as it were, while at the same time, nevertheless, we're still hyper-connected with one another, so that there is a kind of planetary consciousness rising, what Teilhard de Chardin, the Catholic scientists, referred to as the noosphere, right? You've got the geosphere of the planet, the biosphere of life, and then the noosphere, which is the crystallization of the human mind in particularly in cyberspace, that's connecting us all together, but connecting individual, unique civilizations at the same time. So it's able to connect us together, but without imposing a one-size-fits-all structure. And so I think we've got a unity and diversity in this rising, I'd call it civilizational cosmocracy, as it were. So it's really cool stuff. So awesome, Baja Cat. Awesome. Potatoes and Trash. Trump has terminated the security detail provided by Dr. Anthony Fauci today, as he should. 96 hours too late, in my opinion. Yeah, he's going to town, man. This is the greatest presidency of our lifetimes already in this, because he's finally woken up to the power of the executive order. And then now the idea is, so he gets that again. That's the tip of the spear, and then the next step is to make these EOs a permanent part of our American constitutionalism for this day forward. Pat, question: what did a class? Oh, you did a class on crypto a few years ago, and I was at it. I tried it then, but things went wrong on my end. Who do I talk to get my crypto started? I've tried to buy some a few times and get very mixed up with how to buy it. I seem to bump into problems. It sounds easy enough to do, but then complicated when I try to do it. I tend to get confused with financial things unless it's easy to do. I know once I learn how to do it, I'm okay. Thank you. Okay, great, Pat. So Prime DeFi, Dan Ryder is an organization we work with to help you get into crypto, and they go all the way. I mean, I'm part of that group, so I chat with them online. They're great. They're terrific. but they go all the way. I mean, they do all kinds of I forget. There's a practice. I'm even forgetting the term. Is it loading? I'm forgetting. But anyway, they do all kinds of stuff. So you can contact Prime DeFi and see if they can help you. Now, if you want to get into crypto, there is an easy way. The simple way is just go. I mean, I use Coinbase, but there's all kinds of transaction platforms. But pick whatever one you want. It's an app, and you just download the app, and then just do what it tells you to do. You're going to fill in some information. It's going to ask you banking information. As I understand, again, I can't give you financial advice, obviously, but as I understand, I've never had an issue with it. It's completely secure. So you give the information, and then it will give you an opportunity to buy some crypto. So probably maybe start with some Bitcoin. That's nice and easy, right? Bitcoin's going up. It's going to go through the roof if we end up having a Bitcoin reserve. We already do, but even a massive. I mean, Trump basically wants to control 5% of crypto or something akin to that. So anyway, and then it'll show you what to do. And you can also look at some YouTube videos on how to buy Bitcoin using Coinbase, something like that. Nice and easy. It really isn't that hard. I actually used, you crypto fans out there, I actually used a crypto ATM for the very first time to buy some crypto. And dang, those fees were crazy, dude. Yikes. I put in whatever, the money in, and it came back. I'm like, what happened to all my money? That's terrible. I think it was the machine I used was like 25% fee. But again, it's just crypto is going to go up. So, I mean, I did with Bitcoin, it's going to go up so much. If Michael Saylor is correct, it's going to go up through the roof. So who cares? But anyway, so that's what I would do. You can also, I mean, again, if you have some investments, if you want to invest in an ETF, or Michael Saylor's MicroStrategy, what have you. There's all kinds of options, but definitely get in touch with Dan Ryder at Prime DeFi. I'm sure they'll help you. They're terrific. I love Dan. They're amazing. Bert, hello, Dr. Steve. Just wondering your thoughts on New Scum directing people to a Democrat website to earn money from that fire. Oh, I just thought it was just such an ethical thing to do. Democrats are always looking to help the little guy and the person who feels so marginal. Bert, what do you think I'm going to say? You're just setting me up. You're just trying to irk me a little bit. I mean, it just shows you what a scum he is. I mean, seriously, I mean, politics is scummy. Politics deals with money and power. It deals with power, and part of that is money, of course. Money buys things. But, when you see that, I mean, that's just when you would hope you have people in power who have the moral fortitude to refrain from cynical ploys such as that. I personally think, we'll see, but I personally think that Gruesome Newsom, I think he burned himself in those fires. I think his political career is over. I think he's done. He may have a political career in Democrat inner circles or something like that, but as a viable candidate, I think he's shot. I do. I think he's shot. There's no way he could win a single blue wall state at this point, especially with Pennsylvania going the way of Ohio, going really deep red. I don't know if you guys have been keeping your eyes on voter registration numbers. They continue to keep getting redder and redder and redder. It's fascinating stuff. So I just think he destroyed himself in that little cynical ploy. I just think further. That's the last nail in his political coffin. Eric the Red. Eric, good to hear from you, my friend. That's so cool. The Turley clan has a super majority. One of my favorite words of birthdays. clustered together within only 20-something days. Yeah, just within two, the 20th and the 21st. 3 of my kids. Belated happy birthdays to those 3 of your kids you mentioned. Now I'm curious about the 4th kid's birthday. And what's your lovely wife's birthday? Mine's July the 17th, same as another, in this case, late great Donald Sutherland. May he rest in peace. Yeah, so my son Nicholas, that's right. That's the joke. It's like, wait a minute now. But no, Nicholas, he's our youngest. He was born on August 17th, and my wife is May the 18th. So they're kind of more, that's a spring and summer baby. And I'm December 29th. So I'm right after Christmas, which is, I liked December was the month of birthdays, the birthday of the one who saved the cosmos, and then me. So yeah, so I've always enjoyed having my birthday and Christmas, even though yes, we did get slighted on presents. This is a combination of Christmas and birthday present. Yes. So thanks, Eric the Red. Missy, any insights into the real reason Vivek is out? He was so excited about Doge, clashing egos. I was previously concerned about so many strong personalities trying to work together. That is the problem, isn't it, Missy? It is. I mean, it's legit. That's legit of any major undertaking. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. The only info I have is anecdotal, but apparently that little screed he went on about Americans being lazy and having our priorities out of whack. Apparently that took him out. Apparently Trump did not like that. Trump was not happy with that. Trump did what he could to try to quell the situation. And obviously Elon, even though he was originally agreeing with, well, I don't know if he's agreeing with Vivek, but he agreed with the H-1B visa program until definitely acquiescing, saying that's right, we can't do anything until it's totally reformed. All right, good. All right, so it's off the table for now. Good. But the way Vivek talked, yeah, that was dumb. Vivek gets in his own way. I've noticed that. That's a little bit of Vivek is beyond brilliant. He is beyond brilliant. But he does seem to get in his own way. I noticed that in the campaign, and I just noticed that here. If he's not arguing with liberals, he's arguing with somebody else, and he's got to watch out for that. You don't want to end up coming across as very contentious, and then saying that again in the midst of our victory, turning around and excoriating and lambasting American culture as lazy. It's like, dude, that's just. Read the effing room, dude. You walked into the wrong bar. I mean, that was dumb. So that's the anecdote I've heard. I heard Trump said, dude, no, let's make you governor or senator in Ohio. But no, that's just, we're not doing that. So that's what I heard. It's unfortunate. Yes. So, but I think Elon's got this. Lynn, Trump's return reminds me of the Joseph Campbell's hero journey. Absolutely. Great mythos paradigm there. Very much like your depiction of the hero earlier this week. Campbell's hero may choose to leave the comfort and security of his or her community, seeking adventure or a solution to a dilemma. After facing daunting challenges, the hero returns, much changed and with a boon for his or her community. Thank you, Dr. Steve, for reminding us of some of the traditions and beliefs we once held and are now free to hold again. Amen, Lynn. I love that. Yeah, it's called remythologization. Scholars are writing about it. It's happening particularly among men, young men, and they are, there's different theories as to why it's happening, but it just, and the primary one seems to be when a culture looks like it's falling apart. There is a more subconscious part of our mind, our historical memory, what Jean Gebser would call our mythological structure of thinking that kind of kicks in. It's very much like if you feel threatened, you got to fight. You're not thinking about the stock market or the latest philosophical trends, no, you're thinking about being a conqueror. You're thinking about, how do I stand victor? How do I become a David in this moment? I mean, you're thinking in mythological terms. So that's one theory of why mythology is coming back. And mythology is not like it's untrue, right? I know Lynn knows this, but for those who are just listening, mythology are the meta-narratives by which we understand the world. For example, one of my favorites is from the 19th century. I don't agree with it, but a perfect example of myth is a very famous oil painting of Descartes, listen to me, of Galileo standing in front of a Catholic Inquisition, having to give an account for his heliocentric conception of our solar system. And he has this, he's looking up as he's defending his position. There's a beam of light coming on him, and the Inquisition, the Catholic cardinals, are in the shadows and in the darkness, just crunched over. And so, of course, Galileo is looking up, his vertebrae straight. The ideal man, and these other guys are like animal-like and so forth. And that is a mythos. That's a myth that is employed today by a scientific rationalism that claims they're done with myths. We don't need myths. Myths are archaic, right? They're prehistoric. They're knuckle dragging. We've evolved beyond myth. That itself is a myth. The notion that we've evolved beyond myth is a myth. You're not going to find a single scientific experiment to prove that. That's not science. That is the idea that science can solve all of our problems, that science is the only true way of knowing, is itself a myth. And it's just a bad one. That's the difference. It's a crappy one that's crumbling into dust as we speak. So what we're drawing from more and more, like you mentioned Joseph Campbell and the hero journey myth and so forth, Odysseus and the Odyssey, or J.R.R. Tolkien, the entire Lord of the Rings, the hero's journey, particularly for Sam, interestingly enough. These are all coming back today. Young men and you're seeing it everywhere. You're seeing it in video games. You're seeing it in movies. You're seeing it in stories. Yeah, you're seeing it everywhere. And it's just mythology is back, and it's stronger than ever. So it's really cool to see. Thank you for that, Lynn. Paul, good morning, Dr. Steve. If you've never been accused of a crime, have never been arrested, tried, or convicted of one, how on earth can you possibly be pardoned? Shouldn't the SCOTUS get involved and make a ruling about these blanket pardons even being legal, let alone constitutional? It was sketchy when Ford did it for Nixon, but Biden turned it into an art form. I love that, Paul. That's a great way of putting it. Nobody challenged it when Ford did it because it was sort of like a one-off. It's like a one and done, but boy, you're absolutely right. I mean, Biden turned it into an art form, and not just for, not just for Fauci and Cheney and the like, but I mean, and Milley, but for freaking, for his own family members, like literally just an hour before he left. I think that's like the last official thing he signed before he left the Oval Office was just this utterly disgusting immunity for his family. No, I'm with you. The Supreme Court can't just step in. That's not the process we have. The Supreme Court, it has to get challenged. I'm sure it will. I don't think you have to worry about that. It will get challenged because they're coming after Fauci, at least at the state level. I'm sure they'll be coming after Cheney. They'll be coming after every member on that J6 committee. And remember, it was the Democrats who told us that preemptive pardons are an admission of guilt. That was Adam Shifty Schiff, who's probably the most morally depraved person, in my opinion. Probably the most morally depraved person in the swamp. And that's pretty horrific. But regardless, we'll have to see how the Supreme Court decides it. But they're going to decide it. They will have to. RoboGuy75, thank you for the super chat. I'm trying to keep my family together. My folks are more anti-Trump, and my sister is more left. I keep trying to reason with them, but I don't know what to do. My folks will at least hear me out, but I'm worried my sister might go ballistic on me. Any ideas? Yes. Do not talk politics with your family. let me sit you down here, bud. All right. As a guy who does this full time, as a guy who gets in touch with like long lost friends from high school who ask, so what do you do? And I say, well, I am a broadcaster. Oh, really? What do you broadcast? I do culture and politics. And oh, really? Wait. Oh, Trump, isn't he horrible? Oh, gosh. Oh, it was going so well. So you've got two things. You've got two dynamics here. You've got being right, both politically and epistemologically. You are actually right, being politically and truthful, right? So being right and being in a relationship. And as you notice, the two can clash because, and this is purely a matter of I'm not trying to be arrogant here. I'm not trying to be condescending, but not everybody's right in both ways. Not everybody's right politically, not everybody's right truthfully. So being right and being in relationship do not necessarily mix. What I've learned to do over the years, and Robo Guy, I have learned this the bitter hard way. Okay, I didn't learn this through a book. Because I believed I could convince anyone. There was a time I believed I could convince anyone. Any argument, I believed that I could convince anyone through argument, which is absurd, because that's only one part of our imaginations, is the intellectual side. There's also the ethos side, the ethical side, and the emotional side. And emotions can trump intellect. We all know that. As a matter of fact, it's generally how we live, breathe, and have our being, is we're aesthetically, emotionally attracted to something, and then we get our minds to intellectually justify that attraction. And it takes a lot of training to go the other way. So I've learned the hard way that if you value relationships, and you obviously do, or else you would not be writing that, for the sake of that relationship, you have to sacrifice being right. For the sake of the relationship, you have to sacrifice being right. Now, I know the response, believe me, I know. I've talked about it and with myself and with others. It's easy to say, well, then you're lying. All right? Then you're lying. Then you're, if you're not standing up for the truth, blah, 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 blah. And you're not denying truth ultimately. You're sacrificing your need to be right for the sake of the love of the other. And love is sacrificial. And again, think about from the Christian vantage point. Was Christ justly crucified? Did Christ commit blasphemy when he said, I am God? I am the Son of Man, and you will see the Son of Man. Are you the Christ, the Son of the living God? I am, and you will see the Son of Man sitting at the right hand of God the Father in power and glory, quoting Daniel 7:13, basically equating himself as God in the ears of Sanhedrin. And they said, this is blasphemy. Was he a blasphemer? Was he? No. Was he rightly crucified? No. Well, in one sense, actually, you could say from Rome's perspective, yes, because he was claiming to be the true God that rivaled Caesar. But certainly from the Jewish perspective, or you could even just go, but Caesar was a fraud. He was a parody of the real thing. This is if you want to know who this infinite, eternal God, who's the sum total of all the plenitude of possibilities and and life infinite and eternal, if you want to know what that infinite being God is, you look at the one hanging on the cross. That is the character of God revealed in its fullest sense. Christ voluntarily submitted himself to injustice and lies in a world where truth could only be found as crucified because of our fall. And then he transfigures that into a tree of life. So if you focus on the relationship and forsake Trump, forsake MAGA, forsake being right when you're around them, just listen to them, hear them, tell them you understand. You can appreciate where they're coming from. That's all they want. They just want to be heard. And if you do that, then you become a light in their life. They trust you. And in that process, they may at some point turn around and say, you kind of like that guy, Trump, don't you? You kind of like that MAGA. Can you tell me why? And I've heard this. Nicole Shanahan has just said this. She said she was taught to believe that the MAGA, right? You've heard this. She was taught to believe that the MAGA movement was filled with a bunch of intolerant bigots that hated left-wingers and the like. And then she goes and she meets them and she finds they're the kindest, most generous, the most tolerant, inclusive people imaginable. Cenk Uygur just said this. Cenk Uygur found, he said that if he agrees with MAGA 5% of the time, they slap him on the back and say, welcome, come on in. Great to have you. If he disagrees with the woke 5% of the time, they want to excommunicate him. So just be there for her. Just be there for them. Don't try to be right. Focus on the relationship. And if you do that, ironically, your rightness will become beautiful to them. So that would be my exhortation to you. And I'm preaching to myself most especially. William O'Toole, since creating Space Force, what do you think Trump will use it for? I know the left made fun of it, but Trump had designs for it, not just for out-of-this-world employment. Is he using it for intel on the swamp enemies of the USA? Your thoughts? Thank you. Yeah, that's a great question. So we know anybody who laughs at that doesn't understand the time we're living in. We are not living simply in an age of geopolitics. We're living in an age of astropolitics. One of the reasons why Trump wants to take over Greenland is because Russia is taking over the Arctic. Well, one of the reasons Russia and China want to work together to create a very large, I believe, like a square mile a space station on the moon is because the United States basically owns space right now. We more or less own space. So there are, I think, about 10,000 satellites out there. Don't quote me on that. Double check that. Some I've seen as 12,000. A lot of them don't work, or some of them, I should say, don't work. So you're going to get different figures. I think there's 7,000-ish working satellites, about 12,000 altogether. I think 80% of them belong to us. 90% of them belong to us. Again, largely thanks to Elon. They belong to us, meaning to some American, largely through Elon and his Starlink satellites that he's been sending up through SpaceX. So Trump saw Space Force as absolutely essential in, for lack of a better term, establishing galactic supremacy so in our astropolitics. There is a whole now body of law dedicated to international relations in outer space. It's a very small body of law. I believe it's very, I believe it's a very, very, how did somebody put it? I was just listening to a lecture on this not too long ago, but something like you could read all the laws in one sitting. It's that short. You're not allowed to use, for example, weapons in outer space. But you are allowed to, if you need to destroy satellites. So one of the ways around that is you can test missile capabilities in outer space by using as your target a satellite that doesn't work. So we do get around that, but bottom line, what Trump is doing with Space Force, bottom line, is he is establishing American dominance in the galactic realm, in astro politics. Now, whether he's going to use that, to harness intel in the swamp, or well, certainly he's going to use it against the enemies of the United States and so forth. What he's going to use it for specifically remains to be seen. But that is the general. That's why I talk about like a civilizational cosmocracy. We're not in a. Our politics is not limited anymore to space, to geospace. Our politics is now astro space. It is a cosmic politics more and more. And Trump wants to make sure that we're on the front lines of it. Larry Davis, do you think the crimes against Christians will end under President Trump? I do. I think it would be very hard now with the power of the presidency and with Mike Johnson, of course, as Speaker. I think it would be, and Thune as well as Senate leader. I think it would be very, very and with our current Supreme Court, I think it would be very difficult for the continued persecutions. I'm still stunned that they were allowed to jail the pro-lifers the way they did under Biden. I'm stunned that other forces didn't come in to counteract that. But now I think that's all over. Mark of the Roses. Question, are J6 protesters all out now? I'll never believe it was a riot as reported. Of course not. You got it. Only active instigators were FBI informants, I believe. Are prison administration dragging their feet like they did the first day? Good question. I have not followed up on that. Mark of the Roses, I did hear there was some stonewalling. I did hear that absolutely, along with you. My colleague has a personal friend who was in prison for 4 years, and he's out. So we have just at least that personal anecdote for you. And of course we have other, like the former leader of the Proud Boys, what's his name? Terrio, I'm forgetting. He's out. So we're getting all of this, anecdotal evidence that they are getting released in mass. We're starting to get some testimonies of what life was like in that. I do believe every one of those guards should be fired, especially if they were put under torturous. And we have to find out who had directed them to be put into solitary confinement and in less than stellar circumstances. So a lot to be pulled out from all of this. But as I understand it, most have been released. But a good question. Let's stay on top of that. They deserve that. They deserve our time and attention on this. Joan Hampton, I did some reading on the origin of the 14th Amendment birthright section. It seems the intention was to guarantee citizenship to those who had been enslaved. There was some discussion at the time about children of Chinese who came in California. But is there any indication that they were smuggled in illegally or that illegal entrants were an issue then? That's the way I understand it too, Joe. No, so to me, like the immigrants of the Chinese immigrants coming in California, that would be very much akin to somebody on like a green card visa or a work visa or even a student visa per se. They are here under the legitimate jurisdiction of the United States, and therefore do not have a sole sovereign allegiance to another country. Whereas if you're here illegally, by definition, you have nothing to do with the United States. Yes, we'll take care of you as a human person, no question, but you don't have any legal rights here in the United States and as a U.S. citizen, and so the birthright citizenship seems to be allowed in between the two. There's a betwixt in between. You have the United States citizen on the one side, and you have a total illegal immigrant on the other. And the question is now, if both have babies, as it were, do both babies automatically become citizens if they're both in the country. Well, there seem to be exceptions to that. For example, if you're an ambassador, you're here for 10 years, you raise a family, have kids, your kids don't become foreign diplomats' kids don't become automatic citizens. So there are clear exceptions to the 14th Amendment. And we just have we don't have, it seems to me, a Supreme Court decision that has made it very clear what exactly those exceptions are. What Trump is simply saying is that illegal immigrants must be recognized as exceptions. They do not have automatic citizenship if their children are born here because they're not supposed to be here. Whereas a green card recipient, student visa, whatever, they are supposed to be here and do come under our legal jurisdictions. And for whatever reason, I personally think it's dumb, but for whatever reason, and that's probably because I just don't know enough, but for whatever reason, the framers of the 14th Amendment thought that that should include birthright citizenship. So we'll see. We're going to have to work it out. We can debate it till we're blue in the face. Only 5 people on the planet's opinion really matters on this in the end. And then we would have to, if it doesn't go our way, we'd have to look at a constitutional amendment. The Moral Reform Chronicles. I love that. That's a great title. I don't know how else to go about this, but Trump reminds me a little bit Lawrence from Lawrence of Arabia. The man knew so much, and once he found out who the enemy was, he then took the side of the innocent. I love that. That's really neat. Yeah, again, this is what I mean. Trump is very heroic in the classical sense. Certainly after the fight, the hand in the air after he was almost mortally wounded, saying "fight, fight, fight." There is in the Greek term, the ancient Greek term hero. There is a heroic element to him that in his willingness to fight for those who can't fight for themselves because they don't have the oligarchical power and affluence that that this kind of monarchical elite have. And I love it. I love the way you're finding all kinds of connections, because I think it's true. I don't think that's, I wouldn't be cynical on that. I do think that, and our good friend Konstantin von Hofmeister's written about this in his book, Esoteric Trumpism. I do think Oswald Spengler, the German scholar, wrote about when civilizations are falling, the people naturally, historically, look for what he called a Caesar figure to rise up and fight on their behalf and defend what is good. And so this is reaching, again, as Jean Gebser, the Swiss scholar, talked about the levels of consciousness that we have. We have a scientific level of consciousness, but underneath that, we have what he called a mythological consciousness. And none of that, he said we had a magical in terms of our use of technology, stone and so forth. And these layers of imagination, structures of thought don't disappear just because we're evolving. No, he said that you don't evolve beyond the mythical. Again, that itself would be a myth. The mythical is part of it, is the narratival structure that provides the value hierarchy of how you're going to make sense of the world, because the world is made up of infinitesimally complex particulars. So which ones do you focus on? Which ones get priority? Which ones can you cast aside? That's where myth comes in. That's where story comes in. That's where heroes come in. Heroes end up helping us to make sense of the world. And it's it's that we are in a very real remythologized era right now. And it's brilliant. It's beautiful. And it's part of what's turning us all back to religion. It's really cool. Vaughn Cassidy, Dr. Steve, have you read or do you own the book by Pete Hegseth called Battle for the American Mind, co-written by my very good friend David Goodwin? Uprooting a Century of Miseducation is a book you could have co-authored. I will send you a copy if you didn't know. Thank you, Vaughn. No, I do have it. It's a brilliant book. So my good friend, the president of the Association of Classical Christian Schools, David Goodwin, co-wrote it with Pete, and he gave me a copy. And we had him on here. Oh, it was about 2 years ago, I think, 2.5 years ago, to talk. Not Pete, David. David was on to talk about the book. So thank you for that, Vaughn. It's a wonderful book. I'll let you in on this. You guys will like this. So, and I'm sure David has no problem me telling you guys this. So, I'm watching. Right, I'm watching Fox. I haven't watched in a while. Well, actually, I was watching Jesse last night. Jesse Waters. Who have you ever noticed his mannerisms are just like Bill O'Reilly's? It's kind of weird, but regardless. So, I'm watching Laura Ingraham, and this is right after the election. I think it was the week after, within 10 days or so after the election. And I'm watching it every night because we're all celebrating just this amazing victory, popular vote, both the House, the Senate, sweeping all 7 swing states. Not even Obama was able to do that. So, we're just celebrating. All of a sudden, Laura goes, this just came up, breaking news. Pete Hegseth, our own Fox News' Pete Hegseth, has just been nominated for Secretary of Defense. And I heard that. It broke live, and I grabbed my phone. First thought I had is to text David, who co-authored the book with him, David Goodwin. I said, David, did you see this? I found the article. I found a tweet or whatever, forwarded to him. I heard back like within 10 minutes, and he said, I had wondered if David maybe was part of the screening process, the background check that they have to go through since they co-authored a book. No, he wasn't. So he had no idea. And he said, oh, this is amazing. I've never seen, this is incredible. Who would have ever imagined? So yes, we may have somebody who's very much involved with true classical, the renaissance of classical education. It's happening all over the nation, as our Secretary of Defense. It's he should pass no problem. I heard Lisa Murkowski and Susan Collins are just the two. Just being typical rhinos, doing what rhinos do best, which is always defend the swamp. That's what they do. So, no, this is so incredibly exciting, and it's amazing. It's amazing to see what's happening here. And classical education itself, if you don't know, is the form of education all our founding fathers had. It's centered on the great books. It's centered on Latin and theology is the queen of the sciences. And its whole job is to create a true virtuous person. A truly educated person is a virtuous person. And it started with just a handful of schools back in like 1994. Today, it has exploded. It's upwards of 1,000 schools all across the country right now. And I was part of that for 18 years, and it was an honor to be a part of it. And I miss it dearly. I do. I'll always love classical education. But now we get to bring it, we get to share it in the Department of Defense together, which is great. Thank you, Vaughn. Thank you so much. Hey, if you do have an extra book, send it to one of our Turley talkers or a fellow friend or loved one, and share with them this amazing historical moment. Vlad the Impaler, do a vid next week. And the number of new job openings around the country, near all of our job growth over the past 4 years went to illegals. I will keep an eye out for that, Vlad. I will keep an eye out for sure. Love it. Rock Dog. Dr. Steve, the stream early in the week, I asked you a question. If Trump is able to prove that 2020 was stolen from him, what could be done? You say that nothing would happen since Congress certified the election. You believed. Why does that have to be that way? For instance, if we have judges that shouldn't be sitting on the bench, we can't just remove. Why can't we just remove them? People in positions such as bureaucrats or judges who are appointed by an illegitimate president should be removed from, I'm assuming, from their positions or so forth. No, I hear you. Yeah, it's what I was trying to point out is it's different. It's not a matter of removing the judge who shouldn't be there. It's whether or not the judgments that he or she made are now null and void if they're kicked out. I don't believe so. And again, I use the church as an example. You can have you can have an illegitimate bishop, you know, in rainbow gear at the National Cathedral. Not that this would ever happen or anything, right? But you could have somebody, sorry, I said illegitimate. You could have somebody who's pretending to be a bishop who should not be. Are all the marriages that she presided over, if she turns out to be a fraud, are all the marriages invalid? Are all the baptisms invalid? Are all the burials invalid? No, because it's the institution that provides the validity, not the person. The person can be found to be a fraud, and then you deal with them. But that person's actions are done not on behalf of themselves, but on behalf of the institution. And the institution is valid regardless of who's administering to it, as long as that person was ordained, certified within the structures of that institution. So the day of holding Biden accountable is gone in terms of being president, kicking him out. If it was shown that he was unrightfully sworn in, then there could have been a process to have gotten rid of him, impeach him, find him guilty, get rid of him. That's the process. Those days are over, obviously. I guess we can impeach him after the fact, like Nancy Pelosi did, which was beyond absurd. It was one of the most absurd acts imaginable. Impeaching a president after he's finished serving, his second impeachment. So, yeah, it's kind of like pardoning somebody who hasn't been convicted, right? What is he being impeached for? He's not president anymore. So, I mean, you've got those kinds of mechanisms, but once Biden is gone and done, the legitimacy of the institution itself is the means of the legitimacy of what he did. So that's what I'm saying. So if a judge is found out to be a fraud, the judge can be removed, but everything the judge did while in office stays, as I understand it, precisely because of the legitimacy, precisely because the legitimacy of what they did not come from them. It came from the institution they represent that certified them. It's the same thing in a university. If you go through a class, I think I use that example. You take an entire class, you passed, then you move on, and then a year later you find out that the prof was a fraud. They don't have a doctorate. They shouldn't have been teaching. You're still going to get credit for the class. The prof will be fired, but you're still getting credit for it because the legitimacy of the credit does not come from the teacher. It doesn't come from the person. It comes from the institution issuing the diploma. No one person issues the diploma. It's the institution does it. Everybody else does it on their behalf through the process of legitimation. That's the best way I understand. But again, that's what I think, Rockdog. I could be wrong. I mean, no problem. I'd be happy to be wrong. No problemo. I'd love it. But that's just if you're wondering why don't they just do that? Well, I think that's why. All right, I think we've got 5 more and we're done. We'll do these real quick. We're getting at just past the 2-hour mark. Gremlin Anku, Dr. Steve, look into a website called wearebridge.com. It's what DEI evolved into. Keep up the great work. Okay, we will. I'm sure it's a doozy. Thank you very much, Gremlin. And thank you for the Rumble super chat. Very, very, very appreciated. We love you at Rumble. We love our Rumble audience. Stephen Click, I'm being blocked and censored by saying certain things about the left. Crucial data as criminals. Ooh, all right. I don't know. We'll have to see. I think those blocking days should be coming to an end. Edward Marone, Dr. C, some of my liberal friends claim that President Trump's XO ending birthright. Executive order. Thank you. Ending birthright citizenship violates the 14th Amendment. Can you clarify the issue for us? Thank you. God bless. All right. So hopefully you were listening earlier, Edward. Hopefully I did that. So bottom line, it comes down to, does everybody, no matter what your legal status is, does anybody and everybody who gives birth in the United States, within our borders, does that child automatically become citizen, or are there exceptions? That's the major issue. There are clearly exceptions, right? Just because you're a diplomat. Just because you're a diplomat. There are clearly exceptions, like diplomats, right? Ambassadors and so forth. Their kids do know, if they're serving here, they don't become citizens. So if there are exceptions, are illegals one of those exceptions? Trump thinks yes. That's what we'll have to find out. Ryan Dubois, Dr. Steve, do you see charges be brought against Illinois Governor, what's his name, Pritzker, for still to this day saying he's going to protect the illegals and from hiding them from ICE? So, yeah. I mean, Tom Homan made that pretty clear. They're going to crack down on any attempts at trying to obstruct them, to bring them to justice. I don't know if charges will be brought against him. It's probably not going to be him, but it's going to be a lot of his henchmen. And they better watch out. If I had to put my money on anyone, it would be on Trump, not on that fat lard in Illinois. I mean, he's just a loser. He makes, what is it with these Chris Christie kind of guy? I mean, I'm just sorry, I shouldn't do that. I shouldn't insult him like that, but he is just scummy. Benton Collins, it is tradition that the prayer service following the inauguration should be held at the Episcopal National Cathedral. What can be done to change the site of the event to a church which reflects the values of normal Christianity? Yeah, I was going to do a video on that. I just thought she was just, why did I guess there were just other things that were taking up more of a priority, and she was just so pathetic. It was, I just blew it off because it's just so utterly clownish and buffoonic. Oh, I agree with you. I mean, it's purely a matter of, I don't like saying, because I'm very traditionalist, but if you're if the Episcopal Church, I'm just going to say it, the Episcopal Church has largely become a woke cult at this point. Wokeness conquered Episcopalianism. How does Aaron McIntyre put it? The woke gutted their religion and now wear their skins as garments or something like that. I mean, it's just very, very cool way of putting it. The National Cathedral is no longer national. It represents a very tiny, minority, bougie, elite who took over religion because they were too intellectually and morally lazy to start their own. And yeah, you just don't have to do it. I doubt JD, if he gets inaugurated, when he gets inaugurated on January 20th, 2029, I doubt they will be having a service there. Or if they did, it would be officiated by someone other than Episcopal clergy, because Episcopal clergy are just they're no longer fit for purpose anymore. So I think that they would just have to ignore it. And about what church, I don't know. That's a good question. Again, we're a disestablished nation, so meaning we don't have a single denomination. So that makes it a little bit more difficult, but obviously it would be more, instead of interfaith per se, I would make it certainly interdenominational, very evangelical minded, traditional Catholic minded, Orthodox, of course. Love to see that. So. Kevin, one of the speakers at Davos said that President Trump had risen from political death. Yeah, we did a video on that. Was that wild? And it does, that's what you're seeing right there. I agree, especially as they literally tried to physically kill him. I also see a biblical comparison of God's hand in this resurrection with the reawakening of religious faith. What do you think about this? How does this compare from a biblical perspective? Yeah. So, well, God was. I mean, you've seen the diagrams, the animated diagrams, just how close that bullet came to basically blowing his head off. It would have been the tragedy that we avoided by a millimeter tells me this was divine. This was not simply a guy, sorry, Bill Maher. This is not just like he's the luckiest son of a bitch on the planet. Just what a reductionist, so intellectually and morally lazy. This was divine intervention. God is not done with America yet. And nations, like we see in the book of Judges, nations are cyclical. There are times. Sorokin talked about this. Rudolf Sorokin, the Russian-American sociologist, founder of the sociology department at Harvard University, he argued that civilizations cycle in 3 stages. There's a time, as the book of Judges would say, men call upon the name of the Lord, and God moves among them. And you have this, what Sorokin called this very spiritual ideational phase. And then it gets a little bit more balanced. We're not just all wanting to pray all the time. Now we have to work on economic growth, and we have to deal with, military issues, geopolitics, astropolitics, and like that would be the secular side of things. But the secular side is always going to be a reflection in some way, shape, or form of the spiritual, of the sacred. But at some point, then men forget the Lord. And so the secular kind of emancipates itself, separates itself, and goes prodigal from the spiritual. And but then the problem is that society always starts in the spiritual, because it's the spiritual that provides the eternal source of social and cultural renewal that we go through in a world of entropy. So in a world of everything is breaking down, you have to go to that which does not break down in order to find social and cultural renewal. Secularism severs itself off from that which eternally renews, from that which is not subject, which is completely sacred, set apart from the entropic dynamics of degradation. And so secular society inevitably degrades. It inevitably implodes. But the way Sorokin looked at it, when it implodes, it ends up turning into compost. And what happens with compost? The seeds blossom again. So Sorokin recognized that the sacred never dies. The sacred never disappears. No matter how far the prodigal goes, the sacred is always there, because the sacred is eternal. Sacred can never die. And so inevitably, when the prodigal ends up imploding, the prodigal in effect comes home and turns into compost, rots, and then all of a sudden a newness of life returns, of sacred and the spiritual. And that, I think, in many ways is exactly what happened there. Trump went through his own dark sort of, degenerative period politically speaking. But there he was clearly was tapping into a societal renewal that involved spiritual dynamism that I believe protected him on Jay the 13th. God protected him. And in his rising again to fight for what is good, right? Just think of the way Samwise Gamgee would tell Frodo, or the way Braveheart, William Wallace would speak to his fellow Scotsmen to fight to be free. That victory has been given to us on November 5th. And so I think it's a holistic victory. And I think in many ways we're returning to those, to the source of that spiritual renewal in him and in what he's in his leadership. And that's it. What a beautiful way to end. Thank you, Kevin, for that. All right, gang, have a beautiful weekend. Love you guys. Hey, I may check in with you guys over the weekend, just so you know. So make sure you stay close to the channel because, I mean, again, Trump doesn't rest. Well, I'm not going to rest. We've got all kinds of amazing things happening. So I want to keep you on the front lines of this new front row seat for the new golden age rising up. So if anything comes up, I will do a quick video and quick chat tomorrow. Until then, God bless, guys. Have a wonderful week.